Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wikidata Workshop. I'm so excited to be able to tell you a bit about the current state of Wikidata today, the struggles we're still facing, and some of the ways you might actually be able to help us in the future. Let's start with the state of Wikidata. Just last week was Wikidata's 8th birthday, and we celebrated with our community, and it was great. And I hope that some of you will join us in the future for the 9th birthday, for example. Now, when you think about Wikidata, you can think of it in 3 stages. Data gets into Wikidata, it gets ingested with tools or by hand in the user interface, and then that data gets maintained and enriched. It gets interlinked, mistakes gets fixed, it gets linked to other external databases and more. And then, last but not least, it gets reused in other applications, it gets used to make visualizations, and so on. Now let's look at those stages in more detail. First of all, ingestion. Right now, we have about 90 million items. These describe concepts in the world, like Berlin. These graphs, by the way, show you the development over the last year. Next to those items, we have about 8,000 properties. Roughly 5,500 of those are links to external databases, catalogs, other websites, and so on. And using those items and properties, we make about 1.15 billion statements, of which roughly 10% are links to other databases. So that's a lot of data already. But that's not where we stop. Wikidata, next to its items that describe concepts, also has lexemes that describe words in any language. And right now we have about 310,000 of those in Wikidata. Now let's look at the maintenance and enrichment side of it. We have an amazing community of about 11,500 active editors who take care of the data from day to day. And they make at least 5 edits in a month. And they do this in fantastic wiki projects, for example, where they come together and discuss and organize specific data. There's a wiki project for so many things, be it video games, books, medicine, music, Star Trek. Of course, we have a Star Trek wiki project. If you have a specific interest, go and see if you can join a wiki project and help out, model data better, enrich the data that's already there, and so on. When we then look at the reuse side of things, it is harder for us to tell numbers here because we are privacy conscious and many organizations, people use our data without us even knowing it. But here's some of the things we do know. 54% of all articles across Wikimedia projects like Wikipedia, Wikivoyage, and so on use some data from Wikidata at this point, and growing. Our Spocker endpoint receives about 6.5 million Spocker queries per day. So that is a lot for a little Spocker endpoint. And we have a ton of fantastic applications, and I just wanted to highlight 3 to give you an idea of what people are doing. The first one is Tom Scott, a YouTuber, used Wikidata's data to find out what is actually the best thing in the world. So he looked at Wikidata as a source of concepts to have his readers rank against each other. Then you have something like entity explosion at the top. And it lets you do neat things like you are on a website, for example, here, the Spotify page for one of my favorite bands, Walks of the Earth. And it will show you links to other places that Wikidata knows where Walk of the Earth is represented. Their Twitter profile, their Facebook page, their SoundCloud, and so much more. And you can use this to basically do the same thing on any website that Wikidata has an external ID for. And last but not least, I wanted to highlight equalstreetnames.brussels, which is a website that uses Wikidata's data to identify streets in Brussels and who they are named after and their gender, and then colors this OpenStreetMap map according to if this street was named after a male or a female person. And you can see who we name our streets after. And it's a very nice and visual way to make people aware of a pretty significant gender gap. And with that, let's move on to some focus and struggles that we still have. There are 3 areas that we're focusing on. The first one is reliability and growth. The second one is data quality. The third one is language and culture coverage. Let's look at the first one, reliability and growth. Why is this hard? Why is this a struggle at the moment? Wikidata's content is growing, and that content growth is outpacing the growth of our community. The graph you're seeing there is showing how many pages, theoretically, one active editor has to monitor. And right now that is about 7,000 pages, which is not very realistic unless we give them better tools to do that, which is what my team and I are working on. Overall, we're reaching the limits of what MediaWiki was built for, the software that's underlying Wikidata and Wikipedia. And we do this both socially and technically. Socially, for example, if you look at this screenshot, it shows a recent changes page. It's a fairly standard MediaWiki tool that shows you any change that's been made on that wiki and lets you filter it to find issues and just monitor what's going on. With so many things happening in Wikidata, it's really hard to keep up with that change via a tool like recent changes. So again, we need better tools to support our editors in keeping the content in good shape. And the third area in reliability and growth is our Sparkle endpoint. We want to, at the same time, have a large data set that is very frequently updated through all the edits that are happening on Wikidata, and then have many people send many queries to the Sparkle endpoint. This is a situation that is technically just very hard. You usually find solutions that satisfy 2 of those requirements, or even just 1. Let's move on to data quality. We need to be able to measure data quality at scale, to be able to tell if Wikidata is actually getting better, and support the editors in finding the data that is potentially problematic. The graph that you're seeing there is based on a machine learning system that we have called ORIS that judges the quality of an item. And it basically shows how Wikidata's overall quality has developed over time. So it's definitely getting better. The problem here is that ORIS only looks at a very narrow definition of data quality and ignores a lot of dimensions that we would still be very interested in and that are still very important for us. The next thing here in this area that is tricky is identifying and then combating vandalism and doing that at scale. And this can be intentional vandalism, like people really trying to hurt the project, or just accidental vandalism because someone doesn't understand how Wikidata works and makes a mistake. And identifying this is another thing ORIS helps us with. For example, here on my watch list in MediaWiki, it highlights some edits that are potentially problematic and that might need my attention. It's not particularly good at picking out the worst edits that really need my attention, and that could be massively improved. And the last thing I want to highlight in data quality is ontology issues. We're modeling the world in Wikidata, and modeling the world is very, very hard. And I don't know who of you knows this brilliant video by the BBC Scotland about what is actually soup, which this screenshot is taken from. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It really speaks to a lot of the Wikidata people from the heart. And let's look at the last area, which is language and culture coverage. Wikidata is trying to provide data and knowledge to everyone. And that, of course, highly depends on the interest of the editors and their time and so much more. So inevitably, we have gaps and biases in Wikidata's data. But how do you identify them and then address them together with the people who can address those gaps? Some of the things we've been doing are stuff like this map that shows the content distribution on Wikidata. And then people noticed areas that didn't have as much content as they thought it should have and started adding that content. But there's, of course, so much more gaps and biases that we can think about than just geographic biases. And with that, there's still so much more we want to know, and some of those you actually might be able to help us with in each of those areas. The first one, reliability and growth. There's one big question. How can we make Wikidata's data openly available for querying and at scale? My dream here would be a free and open graph database with fast updates and response time for a lot of data. In the area of data quality, we have the question of how can we actually reliably measure the quality of our data in a more accurate way, especially looking at factors like accuracy, objectivity, completeness of that data. Here my dream would be a reliable and automated quality assessment at scale. The second question here would be, how can we reliably find and then address issues in the data that we have? Be this vandalism and misinformation, outdated data, problems with the ontology. And my dream here would be finding, building tools that automatically identify issues in the data we have and verify the data we have. What would also be great to have are tools for finding and suggesting fixes for the ontology issues that we have. And last but not least, in the language and culture area, I would love to better understand where we actually are. Where do we stand when it comes to the language and culture coverage in our content and in our editor base? And my dream here would be a privacy-respecting ways of better understanding the makeup of the editor community. I would love to have more clarity on conflicts and tool usage around knowledge diversity, and a good understanding and communication around the gaps and biases that are in Wikidata's data so we can do something about them. And with that, I would like to thank you. I hope to see many of you on Wikidata. If you would like to talk to me about any of the things I proposed, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to take your questions.